marijuana is becoming legal in just over a week. Just let's get your thoughts on that. What does it mean to finally be 1 week away from legal recreational marijuana?
Well, I think this is absolutely historic. It's going to change a lot of things in this country. It's going to create a lot of new employment, an entire new industry. It's going to put Canada in the forefront of a global business that we estimate will someday be in the range of $1 trillion a year. So it really is a historic moment for Canada and Canadians that I think will improve life in this country.
Opening up in small towns, do you have to operate differently than in, say, Winnipeg or even Brandon?
Well, we may, and we don't know the details of that yet. We've just been working on the RFP with the province, for the smaller rural areas, and we don't know exactly what that's going to look like. We can only guess, and really confirmation would have to come from them. But I personally think it probably would have to be somewhat different, because if you're in a very small rural area, you may not have the capacity to build, for example, say a 1,500 square foot store, because you don't have the population base to serve that store. So it might be that you have to put some sort of separate retail outlet in an existing store, sort of like you see with alcohol sales in smaller communities that take a section of a store. So it might be something like that, but again, we don't know what the rules are or what the plan is. But I could see some either it's going to be standalone stores or it's going to be some sort of combination store.
Just with rules and regulations and all that, what is the process, or what has been your experience opening up in Manitoba? You're a week away. What sort of hurdles have you had to go through to come to this point?
Well, yeah, there have been a lot of hurdles, right from the very beginning when we were the fourth MMPR producer licensed in Canada, and there's been hurdles all along the way. Most recently on the retail side, the provinces, of course, haven't been able to really put together their retail plans completely until legalization legislation passed. So all of this is coming kind of late in the year, and everybody's playing catch up. So that's part of it. Now, in terms of regulatory, what typically we do is we apply for a particular location, say for the one in Winnipeg or Brandon or Thompson, and then we need what's called a site-specific license. And then the province will look at that location, make sure that it's suitable from their point of view and the public, and then they will either approve or disapprove of that site-specific license. When we get an approval, we then, can build and open the store subject to a final inspection. So it is actually a very rational process. I think Winnipeg, frankly, is ahead of most provinces and has been all along. For example, BC will only have one store in the entire province. Ontario won't have any stores in their entire province. But yeah, I think Manitoba has been fairly proactive.
Yeah, it's privately sold. Does that make a difference between having it being controlled explicitly by the province as opposed to just being able to open up retail stores independently?
Yeah, it's a big difference because, essentially when you're wholesaling to other retail stores, of course, you're selling at wholesale prices and your margin isn't as high. When you have your own retail stores, the difference is that you're still wholesaling to the province at a wholesale price, but then you're then buying it back from the province and selling at retail. So you make margin on both the wholesale and the retail. So definitely when you can be in a position to do both, it does make a big difference on your margins. And it also helps you control your marketing and your branding and all that kind of thing. So it is very advantageous to the industry the way Manitoba has proceeded on this.
And you mentioned Winnipeg, Brandon, and Thompson. Are you opening up in Dauphin?
We don't know yet because that is subject to an application, and it might well be that there may only be one license allocated to Dauphin, and we have no way of knowing whether we would get that or someone else. The only thing we've said all along is that, the province has made it clear that making legal cannabis available in the rural areas is a high priority for them. And as we are, the largest producer in Manitoba and one of only two, we said, look, we will do everything that we can as a company to support that goal. So we are ready and willing to open up in many rural locations based on our approvals being granted.
Hi, and as the retailer, where do you get your product from?
Variety of sources. We grow our own, obviously, because we have a very large production facility in Winnipeg itself. So a lot of it comes from us. We also have a supply agreement with Canopy where we agree to supply our products to their stores and they agree to supply their products to our stores. And that allows us to provide a lot more variety than we could do by ourselves and vice versa. We also have supply agreements with our sister facility, which we are currently building in Alberta, and with a number of other licensed producers in the country. So, we don't just sell our own product. We want to have a good variety for Canadians. And right now, in this first 6 months to a year, that variety is the biggest issue because everybody is driving to get as much product in their vault as possible to meet the demand. But it's much harder to do that the more strains you produce. So most producers are focusing on a smaller number of strains that are high quality that they can get out to the public, and not so much on as wide a variety of strains. So I think you'll see that most places are going to buy from a wide selection of producers in order to help solve that problem.
And I read that there's going to be a shortage, or they're expecting a shortage. Should people, when they line up on Wednesday morning for when they buy their first legal marijuana, do you think there's going to be a shortage, or do you think you'll have enough supply for at least the first day or moving on?
I think there are going to be some shortages, particularly in some products. Whether it'll run out completely, I don't know. But, it wouldn't surprise me if during this short initial period, you could see a bit of a run on the stores, because if people know, as has been widely publicized, that there could be a shortage, you might find that people are buying larger amounts than they would normally have to because they don't want to be the ones that run out, if you know what I mean. So I think it is possible there could be a bigger run on the stores than we initially expected because of all this publicity. But, barring that, I think we'd be able to supply it, but you will see certain products will run out more quickly than others. And I think the biggest impact will be a lack of the kind of variety that you would expect, say, in 6 months to a year.
When you buy alcohol, you are under the age or majority in the province, you need to present your ID. What sort of security measures would people expect when they go into a retail store in Manitoba?
Oh, exactly the same thing. You'd have to present your ID. All of our staff have been trained on, there's a retail cannabis program done by Lift & Co., which is a company out of BC, and, very advanced programs so that, our people are well acquainted both with the law and, what they can and cannot say. But, there will definitely be ID needed by anybody who's buying in the store to make sure they are age of majority.
And I guess what kind of training do your employees have before opening up? Did they go through rigorous training? Very
rigorous training, yeah. We have two levels. So there's the standard bud tender or store clerk, gets pretty thorough training on every single product. They get training on safety. They can advise people on, for example, if you're going to consume, don't consume and then drive within a certain period. So we work with Mothers Against Drunk Driving on this program as well. So we get a lot of safety training, a lot of product knowledge. And then on the upper level, we can give a lot more advice, deeper advice about each product and what might be right for people. Some people don't react well, for example, to an indica for various reasons. So we can give a lot of advice on the right product for people. And also, let's say if somebody's a new user, we can give them advice on things like, you don't want to get the strongest product in the store on the first day. We do expect that people who have not consumed cannabis for a very long time or ever will be trying it out. And we want to make sure that they have a good experience, not a bad experience.
For someone like me who has no experience in buying this kind of stuff, what would happen when I walk in and I just have questions about what kind of product I should get?
Well, you would probably go to the bud tender and just ask them, look, this is my experience. I haven't really consumed this before, and then I don't want anything that's too strong, because it's just like with alcohol. You want to enjoy alcohol. You don't want to consume too much. You just want to enjoy yourself. It's the same thing with cannabis. So you want to get something that suits you, and they would probably guide you to something that doesn't have as high a THC level. And then, of course, some people have different reactions. For example, some people, consume sativas, and they might find they get a little bit anxious on a sativa, and they prefer an indica. So those kind of questions can all be answered by the bud tenders at the store who have all that product knowledge. But the big thing is if you haven't consumed before for a very long time, you want to consume less, and you want to take something that's probably a lower THC level. You don't want to start out with super lemon haze that's 21% THC. You might be just as well off in the beginning with, say, the Delta 9 house blend, for example.
And for people who aren't living in any of the communities with pot stores, what is the process of ordering it online? Is it just like ordering anything else online?
It really is. You just go to delta9.ca and you make your order. In Winnipeg, we expect that we will be delivering orders within about an hour across town. And then in other areas, of course, it depends on your shipping preference, but you could, literally get it in the next day.
Is there anything else you think people should know when there's 1 week left to go before legalization?
I would say on the first day, you might want to get there early because I do expect that, I'm going to be there at 5 a.m, to be honest, because I know we're going to have a lot of media there and they'll probably be coming in early, morning shows and whatnot. I do think it is possible because there's been so much publicity that we might have a bigger run on the stores. So I would say probably go earlier rather than later, especially if you're looking for a certain product. So that's one thing I would advise people on for sure going on to the 17th. If you want to be there on day one, yeah, I would show up, not crack of dawn, but earlier in the day.
Thanks for listening to my interview with Gary Symons, the Director of Marketing with Delta 9